Okay, so sorry if there's an abrupt like sound or something in the background that you hear at one point in the video. There's work being done at my house, but I want to talk to you, bro, personally, and everyone else who has this problem. Sorry if the mic was super loud there, but so I had a person ask, and I won't say who, but I had a person ask about homosexuality, and they said they kept on lusting for men, right? And they're trying not to because they don't want to go to hell. So a couple of things we have to address, right? Understand that God loves you. Understand that He knows what you're going through, right? He understands what you're going through because at one point He had His Son come down here, right? Jesus understands what you're going through because He lived the life He lived. Now, was Jesus gay? No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is Jesus struggled with the same temptations that everyone else struggles with in lust. Oh, well, you can't understand lust if you're not gay like me or straight like me. No, that's not at all it. You understand that lust is an unnatural attraction to people, right? Lust is not an attraction. It's you wanting something from somebody. And it's a selfish emotion, it's a selfish thing, right? Lust is not a good thing, right? And we understand that because whenever someone says that they think someone is attractive, they'll either follow up by like stop talking about that person, right? Because they just appreciated the fact they're attractive, which is what God intended, right? That's why God gave us eyes to appreciate things. The same way a woman appreciates a man and how attractive they are, vice versa. A man appreciates how attractive a woman is. That's how it's supposed to be, right? It should just be simple as that, right? But obviously, lust takes it a step further, and you begin to fantasize about that person. You begin to imagine things that you know that person probably wouldn't want to happen to them, probably wouldn't want to do with you, right? And that's not because you're ugly or something. It's not because they don't find you attractive, but you just imagine stuff that you wouldn't want someone thinking of you, right? You wouldn't want someone looking at you like that and then imagining doing that stuff to you, right? Because you know that's wrong, right? So let's talk about it, right? So I know that the person who asked this question talked about is that they just can't stop lusting, right? And they don't want to go to hell, right? So understand that you don't want to stop doing something for the wrong reason. For example, a criminal saying he doesn't want to go to jail. A criminal saying he wants to stop being criminal because he doesn't want to go to jail. That's not a criminal who wants to actually fix himself. That's a criminal who just doesn't want punishment. That means the criminal would do what he does the same way he does it every time. It's just that, oh, there's jail I got to worry about. So, but hey, if there wasn't jail, I'd do it, right? That's not to sit there and call you out and say that you're a bad person. Maybe you worded that wrong. Maybe you just worded it that way because you understand that's the ultimate punishment for lusting. But just letting you know, if you want to fix something about yourself, fix it for the right reason. Not because, don't fix something about yourself because you don't want to get caught in the wrong or because, you don't want to suffer the punishment. That's not the goal to fixing it, right? You won't ever forget, you won't have, especially lust, right? Because lust is obviously, it's described differently than any other sin in the Bible because it is said to overcome any man. No man can overcome lust. Only the Father can help us do that. And he tells us to specifically run, right? He tells us to run from lust because we just can't conquer that. That's not something we're meant to conquer. It will take you over. Look at David. There's a multitude of great men in the Bible. David, Solomon, Samson, who were all overcome by lust, right? They couldn't conquer it. These were great men. These were great men. Samson was the strongest man to ever live. David was one of the greatest kings. Solomon was the wisest man to ever live. And they all fell to lust, right? So it doesn't matter how good of a person you are. You will fall to it if you give into it and you indulge it, right? So obviously getting to the point of how we stop lust. How do we stop lust? Something that I think someone said that I don't know if they're in the same denomination as I am, but what they said was completely right. Lust is a lack of love for somebody. It's a lack of love. And what does Jesus tell us? He says that we're to love everyone else as ourselves. When you love someone as yourself, you will not do stuff to them. You will not think of them in certain ways. For example, I love my mother as I love myself, right? I love my sister as I love myself. I never have lustful thoughts toward my mother or my sister, even though they are female, right? Which based on how attraction works, I should be attracted to them, but that's not the case. One, because I'm not an animal. Animals will reproduce with their parents or their siblings if they need to in a survival situation. But yet again, that's for survival. It's not just because they want to, right? It's for survival. Plus, animals are instinctual. We're not instinctual. That's why we're different than animals. We have a choice. We can say no, right? And our sin nature says do this, do that, right? But we have a choice to say no. And that's why humans are the only things that can commit evil and animals can't. Animals are acting off of instinct. An animal doesn't just kill you because you took his cracker 2 years ago and he wants it back and he wants you to feel that same pain. No, it's different, right? So understand that when you feel lustful towards somebody, it's because you don't share that same love with them, right? Now, does that mean an absolute monster? No, but understand that means that you lack love for other people. Because like I said, you would not think of your mother or your sister that way. For the person who's homosexual, you would not look at your father that way. You wouldn't look at your little brother that way. You wouldn't look at your older brother that way. You wouldn't look at any of your family that way, because you have love for them. Even if you don't understand the kind of love you have for them, you have love for them to the point of where you wouldn't think of them that way. And you wouldn't want them to think of you in that way either. So understand it's lack of love. How do I love people better? Love God better. Everyone was meant to have an opposite mate. No one was meant to be with a man as a man. No one was meant to be a woman as a woman. No one was meant to be a transgender with another transgender. We were meant to be men and women and to be with the opposite sex. That's how God intended it for, right? And that's not me trying to sit there and tell anybody. That's not me trying to sit there and offend anybody, right? It's me trying to tell you the truth, because that's what it is. It doesn't take a squirrel to understand that God did not intend for a man to have intercourse with another man or a woman with another woman, because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. You'll understand that a lot of women imitate, and if you pay attention, and I can tell you that I've been there. I've been in that pit of masturbation, of lust, and all that. And I'm telling you right now, if you sit down and think about it for a second, if you understand what women are doing when they're with other women and what men are doing with other women, they're improvising on what they normally would be doing with the opposite sex. For example, that's why we have erotic toys that a lot of people like to use to satisfy themselves and whatnot. But I won't get too deep into that. What I want you to understand is that you have a lack of love. And how do you build that love? You build that love by loving God. If you love God, then you'll love what he created. And if you love what he created, you won't try to hurt what he created. You won't think the same way about what he created. For example, I used to generally have a resentment towards my dog because of how annoying he was. And now I sit down every day, and even though I'm annoyed of how ridiculously annoying he is, right? Used annoying twice in that sentence. That's how annoying he is. I understand there's a beauty behind the way that God designed my dog, right? How he designed all dogs, how he designed animals, how he designed people, right? And it is a struggle. It's not easy. Like, lust is probably one of the hardest things to get out of. It's not going to be easy for you. I'm telling you now, it's not going to be easy. You are going to fail thousands of times. But what matters is that you keep on trying. What matters is that you keep on trying to love God more than you love lust. Because you clearly love lust. You do, whether you want to admit it or not. Because otherwise you wouldn't do it. You do stuff because you love it, not because you hate it. Especially when you're addicted to it, which is the case for a lot of people. They're addicted to their lust and they're addicted to their desires. They are a slave to their desires, right? So what does that mean? That means they will continue to commit those desires. I don't know why I'm trying to play with this like it's a butterfly knife. It's really not. But anyway, they will continue to commit to those desires and they will continue to do those acts, even if they don't want to, right? There's a verse in Romans that says, oh gosh, bro. And I'm paraphrasing here. You know, I won't even paraphrase. I'll actually try to find it right now. Give me a second. If it takes too long, I'll pause the video and, try to find it again. But I'm pretty sure it's in Romans 5. See if I can find it on the first try. Okay. Okay, let's see if I can find it here. I do have Google, so I'll just look it up actually. But understand that everyone who follows God at least wants to do the right thing. Yeah, keyboard's loud, I know that. Anyway, it starts off by saying, I do what I do not want to do. And it's specifically in Romans 7. Okay, it's always in 7. I always forget. Anyway, for we know that the law is spiritual, but I am of flesh, sold as a slave to sin. For I do not understand what I am doing, because I do not practice what I want to do, but I do what I hate. Now, if I do what I do not want to do, I agree with the law that is good. So now I am no longer the one that is doing it, but it is the sin living in me. For I know that nothing good lives in me, that it is in my flesh. For the desire to do what is good is with me, but there is no ability to do it. For I do not do the good that I want to do, but I practice the evil that I do not want to do. Now, if I do what I do not want to do, I am no longer the one that does it, but it is the sin within me that lives in me. So I discovered this law. When I want to do what is good, evil is present with me. For in my inner self, I delight in God's law, but I see a different law in parts of my body, waging war against the law of my mind and taking me prisoner to the law of sin and in the parts of my body. What a wretched man I am. Who will rescue me from this body of death? Thanks be to the God through Jesus Christ our Lord. So then with my mind, I am also serving the law of God, but with my flesh, the law of sin. So reading that verse and understanding it, we understand this. We do what we don't want to do as followers of Christ. And a part of that is because of our sinful nature. A part of it is because we haven't gotten out of it yet. And we still need to give that to God, right? And I know everyone hears everybody say give that to God. What does that mean? It's different for each different person. it really is different. One of the things I had to stop doing, obviously, was just putting myself in a situation where I would get there, right? So what does that mean, right? For me, one of the things that meant doing was obviously to stop going to websites is the first thing. But second, obviously to, sorry, I'm looking for something right now. I do like to fidget a lot. But one of the things that meant for me is that I needed to stop letting myself get in situations where I'd be bored and have nothing else to do. That was a part of it. That's a big part of it for a lot of people. A lot of people, once you're addicted to something, you'll go to it even when you're bored or even when you're not bored. You'll just go to it as like an inherent thing to do, right? And you won't think much of it until after you've done it or until you feel shameful about doing it, right? Which we all have already gotten to that point, so we know what that feels like. But again, to get out of that, the first thing you got to do is to understand to love people better. How do I love people better? First of all, understand that you're fantasizing. Nothing you're thinking is realistic, right? That especially goes the same for you also because you're homosexual. And like I said, God didn't intend for men to be with men and women to be with women. But understand that everything about lust is a fantasy and really just doesn't happen. All the stuff you see, all the stuff you watch, whether it be real stuff or like drawn stuff or whatever, right? It's not real. It's not how it works. It's not how God intended for it. It's an exaggerated way that's designed to stimulate you. It's designed to make you want to come back to it, right? Humans work on dopamine. And a big thing of this generation, this specific generation, is that everyone loves dopamine. Everyone wants to get a taste of dopamine. Everyone wants, to experience dopamine. And when they find dopamine, they don't really know how to quit off that dopamine. They don't really know how to let it go, right? So what does that mean? It means you have to let go of that source of dopamine and find something else that entices you the same way. So what do I do that entices me the same way? One of the things I like to do is practice Spanish, right? Another thing I like to do, play games. I don't play games as much anymore because they can be and tend to be a distraction from God. One of the things I also like to do, knives, butterfly knives, right? These are trainers. I'm gonna get a real one real soon. I'm gonna have to dull it a lot because you'll learn when you play with butterfly knives that you have a really easy chance of getting cut. Like I would have got cut right there because this would have slapped my finger against the blade and cut it. But yeah, find distractions, and not just distractions, good distractions, because porn is a distraction, lust is a distraction. It's just not a good one. It's really not a good one, right? So like I said, this is for really everyone. It's not just you, because everyone struggles with lust at some point. There's no person that just sits there and doesn't struggle with it, because that's a part of our sin nature, right? Like I said, lust takes something that is good and perverts it completely. Sex is good. God intended for that. There's a reason why it feels so good. You just weren't meant to do it with everything that breathes. So understand that. You also just weren't meant to do it with the same gender, because that's not how your body was designed. That's not what you're designed for. That's not what you're designed to do. That's part of lust. Lust makes you seek out things that aren't normal, right? Lust makes you seek things that would never happen in real life. That's why you have these erotic websites that depict things that just don't happen. And if they do happen, that's just, for example, you'll see a lot of, if you have noticed and paid attention to this, I'm going to get into this because if you've gotten this far in the video, you're that invested, so I might as well. If you've ever paid attention to that stuff, you'll notice that a lot of the things they do are not filled with emotion. And what I mean by that, I mean they're just doing it to do it, and you can tell that because they're not experiencing emotion, they're just experiencing pleasure, which is very possible. You can not experience emotion in something but still experience pleasure in something, right? I experience emotion when I practice a language and I'm invested in it. And am I saying that everything that, gives you an extreme high in dopamine is, means you're not feeling emotion, you're just feeling dopamine? No, but there are things that you invest your time in and invest your energy in that aren't good for you, and you don't feel the emotion. For example, you're not doing it for the same purpose that God intended you to do it, so you're not getting the same emotion out of it. Not to say that you should run on emotions, but you understand what I'm getting at. This video is getting close along, and I don't know how much of attention span you have, but if you got this far, that's awesome for you, bro. But yet again, I pray for you. I pray for anyone who's listening to this, but understand this. Lust is a hard thing to conquer. It will take you a long time, but it'll be worth it. It really is different looking at people. It's really different. It does so much to you. It really does. One thing I know it does that I've heard from a lot of people is that it makes you lose your focus. It makes you super low on attention span because you're so used to getting dopamine instantly. And if something doesn't give you dopamine instantly, you drop it, right? So hopefully that's something that you'll notice change differently when you start dropping it. And like I said, it's a long journey. So don't be surprised if you fail every other week, every other month, right? It's a long journey. So till then, praying for you. and pray for everyone else. So, yeah.